Adegboye, Adegboyega is a young health safety and environment professional with extensive experience spanning oil and gas manufacturing and construction. He is an associate member of the Institute of Safety Professionals of Nigeria with a NEBOSH International General Certificate in Occupational Safety and Health. He has also undergone various competency training in first aid, control of substances hazardous to health, OHS, process safety management, ISO 45001, occupational health and safety management system, ISO 14001, environmental management system, and ISO 9001, quality management system implementation and audit. He's a graduate of geology from Federal University of Petroleum Resources, Efurum, Fupri, and currently working as a QHSE systems analyst with a HSE consulting firm, Finsbury Hands Limited. So let's give a round of applause as we welcome our speaker. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Please confirm if you can hear me clearly.
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. Thank you very much. It's truly an honor to be here, and it's a pleasure to be speaking to us at this technical session. If you just give me a bit of a moment, let me try to share my slide. All right, please confirm you can see my screen.
Confirm.
Yes, please, we can. Thank you.
All right. Okay. I think let me just turn off the, I don't know, is my video jumping at your end also? It seems to be having a glitch from my end.
Yes, you can just turn it off.
Okay, so I'll just turn it off so we can just focus on the presentation slide. So good morning once again. Ojendede Adegboyega. I apologize to the person introducing me. I know my name can be a bit of a mouthful, so you can just address me as Ade if ever we meet in person. So again, it's a pleasure to be here. And today I'll be talking on the changing world of work, specifically addressing the generational skill gap. In the world we are today, a number of things have started changing. And it's not just about the technology, it's about the people that work in these environments themselves. In the past couple of years, in the past 3 years, a number of things are not the way they were before. We've had artificial intelligence playing a very key role, even though it had been predicted for a while. We didn't expect it to come this fast. And it's very clear that the future of work is seeming not to be in the future anymore, or it is here. And compounding that, with the future of work being here and the technological advancements that we're experiencing in the world of work, we are also noticing that the people that work in these environments, they are also changing. But when we talk about the people that work in this environment, we're talking about the different generations that work in these environments. And with the changing world of work and the changing people that work in it, we need to understand how can we integrate these two? How can we integrate with the future of technology? And how can we also integrate the new entrants to the workforce who have a different reality from us, the people that have been working in the work environment and who have different ideas and skills to bring in. So I would like you all to sit back and relax as we go on this journey together. I salute you heartily in the greeting that was quite common in 2-3 years ago with our elbows. You all will agree with me that if anybody greeted you with their elbow this way back when you were in university, you would think the person is automatically a cultist. You won't even agree to greet the person this way. However, something happened. Something happened that changed our entire outlook. Something happened that changed the entire way we related with one another. It brought some uncertainties, it brought some risks, and it brought a new way of looking at things. It also sped up technology in ways that we did not expect. And that thing we are talking about is COVID. So the pandemic came as a shock to everyone, and it came with a number of disruptions, starting first with economic and social disruptions, where manufacturing process was broken down. The supply chain of various countries was seriously interrupted. It even got to a point whereby an oil barrel was going for less than $1 per barrel. So serious economic disruptions worldwide was something that we experienced. There was massive job loss, and the restructuring of many organizations occurred. Organizations that wanted to survive could not go on working the way they were working before. A number of things had to be changed. Some organizations had to activate their BCP, their business continuity plans, and start working from home, hybrid systems, implementing social distancing, even during the pandemic, during the isolations. Pushing for nose mask wearing and everything. And in fact, some people that had their companies or had their small organizations, due to the isolation that was required, they could not meet up because they couldn't make sales, and as such, they couldn't pay the rent, and they were running at a loss. So in number, there was massive amounts of job loss, and a number of small business collapsed. There was increased awareness of mental health. This came as a result of the fact that a lot of people that were used to socializing to distract themselves from their own minds now had to sit down in silence and deal with what they were like in isolation. So there was an increased focus on mental health, where we see people that had been struggling before, struggling with stress. The symptoms became more pronounced during the pandemic as a result of the isolation. The anxiety, having to switch, the uncertainty of having to switch from a physical working space to an online working space, as well as the myriad of research that went into why people were more anxious when they were working online, in Zoom calls, and etc. from this. And we know that a number of legislations have come out of it. In fact, there was a standard, I believe ISO 45001, ISO 45002, which came out as an addendum to ISO 45001 to assist organizations in setting up a system to manage mental health. There was a departure from centralized working space, rapid adoption of new technology. I mean, the shares of Zoom went skyrocketed so high, and there was also the adoption of remote technology, avionics, trying to control things without even being there. So also there was the change in employee expectations. COVID made it very feasible for people to work remotely. And with that being the case, many employees these days hope to have hybrid systems, particularly in the tech industry as well as marketing. If they see that you are requiring them to stay in the office 24/7 or require them to come to the office every day, they'll simply just reject the work. So employees also started looking for things that will favor them in terms of how they work-life balance, and also flexibility in the workplace. There was also an increased social and environmental scrutiny. Now, if there's something beautiful that COVID did, which was one of the opportunities that came out of it, is that it showed us what the world would be if all industrialized processes came to a halt. Indeed, we saw some of the most polluted cities becoming clear of smog, like Beijing became clear of smog throughout the entire period of COVID, and we had the breathable air index of a number of cities known for having very serious air pollution improving greatly. So it showed us that we could make our environment neat and pointed emphasis at the fact that human activities was indeed affecting the environment. So it also portrays the need for following ESG principles. Now, there is a very wise man who I always look to in when I want to talk about learning and technology, and that person is Alvin Toffler. And he said, the illiterate of the 21st century is not those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. Now, this is very important because if you look at the advancement of technology in the past 100 years, you will realize that in the past 20 years, we have more than quadrupled the advancement of technologies. Microchips are getting smaller by the day, and technology is advancing at an exponential rate. So we're advancing faster now than we were a long time ago. And the half-life of skills, the number of years where skills could be useful to you if you learn them, has drastically reduced from over 20 years to as little as 2 years in some fields. So what this means is that you'll be left behind if you are not constantly developing yourself. And this cannot be exemplified more than if you look at what this is a research from Deloitte, some 5-6 years, I think this is from 2016, talking about the future of work. And they identified 7 disruptors. The first is that moving forward, technology is going to be everywhere. And technology is everywhere now. As of 2016, 6 billion smartphones were expected to be in the world by 2020. Now, as we talk in Nigeria with over 200 million people, almost every child that you find in the urbanized area has a smartphone. I mean, I didn't get a smartphone until I was in secondary school, and some of us did not even get phones that we could use. We're used to the dial, the one that you put, and then you put your finger and you roll it around and it rings, a landline for a large, for those of us that are more senior, and for those of us that were in our teenagers in the 2000s, we were getting to the cell phone stage whereby cell phones were very expensive and you had to buy a SIM card for almost the equivalent of $100 now. But now, as it is now, smartphones are everywhere. They can be used on site, they can be used at the workplace. They are everywhere. And it was estimated that 6 billion smartphones in the world by 2020. The tsunami of data, 9 times more data in the last year. We all agree that we are in the years of big data. Every company now is collecting data using the freemium model, whereby they give you things for free in exchange for your data, which they can then sell for information. There is a change in the nature of careers, whereby the half-life of skills, as I said earlier, has reduced. And if you don't keep developing yourself, what you learned 2 years ago might be useless to you now because everything has changed. I remember one of my mentors would say that there was the time of the Lord regards in safety, whereby chasing people was the way. Oh, you don't do it right, get out of the site. Oh, you don't do it right, get fired from the company. We all know now that we are moving away from that kind of reactive safety management to behavioral-based safety, trying to engage people, trying to develop them, trying to assist them and let them buy into that safety culture. Now imagine someone that has not improved himself from the year 2011 and calls himself a safety professional. In this modern day, such a person will be seen as archaic. Such a person will be seen as practicing Stone Age level of being a Stone Age safety professional who is not focused on the humanity, on the people aspect of development in occupational health and safety. Among the 7 disruptors also is cognitive computing and robotics. I'm very sure that almost everybody on this call right now has heard of ChatGPT. It's a very interesting software that is powered by artificial intelligence that can almost imitate human speech. You can have full conversations with it and it will answer you. And it's one of the key things that we are looking at, some of the tools that we can use in the modern day. If you don't learn to adjust to these things, the world will learn to adjust to it and leave you behind. Explosion on the contingent workforce. For example, in the US, the contingent workforce was expected to be 40% by 2020. Contingent workforce in the sense that workforce that is no longer employed to stay. They are like casual workers, more or less. For example, Uber has no permanent workers at all. All the workers they have are basically on partnership. So they don't have, there have been those questions and those arguments on whether Uber should be liable for the well-being of those workers of their contingent workforce. And I know that some countries have started legislations on that, though nothing has been said in Nigeria yet about it. So the contingent workforce is going to be on the rise as people now want to have multiple jobs and adjust to the new normal of what we are in now. Job vulnerability to automation will also be on the rise and has been on the rise. With we said AI being there, we heard recently that Google laid off about 10,000 workers, and the big tech have also been doing the same thing. So job vulnerability to automation. As automation increases, there will be far less need of unskilled labor. However, that is for those who don't develop themselves. As a mentor of mine said, as a very intelligent man, and I will also call him a mentor of mine, I said, the person I'm referring to is Elon Musk. He said, automation and development of AI is only a threat to people who don't make use of them as tools. So we must also note that job vulnerability to automation is a threat. However, constant self-development is a solution that can work towards that. Training of people also to use these new tools is an advantage that can come of it. Now, diversity and generational change, which makes up a huge center of what we're talking about today, is believed to be on the rise, with millennials reaching 50% of the workforce. Now, millennials, there are different generations in the workplace. And just to name a few, moving forward, we have the baby boomers, the Gen X, the Gen Y, also known as the millennials, the Gen Z, and then the Gen Alpha. With millennials making 50% of the workforce, that means that the older generations will be phasing out, and we'll be expecting a new generation in the workforce. Now, with this generation coming in, what are the things that we are to expect, and how can we adapt to them? Who is this new generation that we are talking about? The new generation is none other than the digital natives, born from 1996 to present. Now, this generation, they are influenced by a number of factors. Key among them being what we discussed earlier, COVID-19. Also, they are digital natives because they were born in a generation whereby there is proliferation of digital currency and various forms of digital media. They've also experienced various forms of financial crisis and mass inflation. For example, someone pointed out that in an entire century ago, there was only one financial collapse. That is only one recession. And now, in just the space of 20 years, we've had 2 recessions on a global scale. And some countries have even still been in recession, have not recovered until now. They do not know a time before the internet. They were born with information ready to go, ready at their fingertips. So they are used to multitasking very fast, and they're also used to finding information themselves. They do not wait for someone to give them information. They can easily and quickly access the information at their fingertips. They're able to process large amounts of information, large amounts of data quickly, because they are being constantly bombarded by data. And this has also had a different effect, and that is that their attention span is very, very reduced. On average, attention span for other generations, the older generations of people, can range up to 10 minutes or 3 minutes, 5 minutes, which means you have 5 minutes before you lose them. You have 5 minutes to get them involved in whatever you're talking about before you lose them. This new generation can have attention spans as short as 10 seconds. So if you cannot get them like that, in that instant, quickly, you've lost them. So we have that. They are always connected and communicating, and they are visual learners. They prefer to have meaningful and impactful jobs, and they desire immediate feedback. As I said, they have low attention span, and very obviously, they are mass users of technology from a tender age. I would like to share a very interesting story, something that happened to me and my uncle. So this uncle of mine visited us, and he had this brand new SUV, sport utility vehicle. And he was using a Sienna before, a very old Sienna that I changed. So this vehicle was smart. It had the electrical systems, everything was controlled by a control panel. When he got into the car and he wanted to, then he started pulling on the door. So it was a sliding door that you open, and then he started trying to pull on the door to close it, so that his son got into the vehicle at the back. He started trying to pull on the door so that the door would close, and he couldn't get it to close. And he started wondering, how do I do this? He looked at it, he looked at it, and looked at it. And the young boy was just looking at him there. And then he said, no, daddy, don't do it like that now. Do you want to spoil the door? And he clicked on the button at the handle, and the door just slid slowly and closed by itself. The man was taken aback. He chuckled to himself, and he's quite elderly. I think he's about 55 years old. He's still young by some standards. So, but he's old school, as we would say. So he got in the car and we got conversing again, and he sat down. The next thing he wanted to do, he wanted to wind down the window, and he was looking for the button, the dial to wind down the window. He was expecting the regular knob that you press and you wind it down. And then the boy just reached out from the back. There was a panel on the dashboard there. The boy just pressed the button, and then the window just went down to the level that was required. And the man had to exclaim that, these children of nowadays, how can you even know the car that I bought more than me? Ladies and gentlemen, the boy I'm talking about is just 5 years old. And he's already teaching his father how to use his own car. So this generation, technology comes intuitively. They do not need, most times do not need to go through manuals and etc. because most things are designed to a pattern in this modern world, and it is intuitive to them. That's why we call them the digital natives. Usually this generation we are talking about consists of two main groups, and that's the Gen Z, who will be entering the workforce, who have started entering the workforce as of 2020, and the Gen Alpha, children born beyond 2011. Now, why should we be bothered? Why should it matter to us that a new generation is entering the workforce? What does it matter? Well, it is a fact that young workers suffer more from work-related injuries than older workers in the workforce. And it can be as a result of a number of factors, but it's a proven fact by research and statistics. And here are some ILO statistics just for reference. These statistics are from the United States, because unfortunately in Nigeria, we do not have these statistics, so we rely mostly on global statistics to help. In 2020, 17.3 million workers were under the age of 25, making up 11.7% of the total workforce. So if you have 17.3 million workers under the age of 25, you have 17.3 million workers in this generation or close to this generation that we are talking about. And the incident rate of non-fatal injuries for workers aged 16 to 19 and 20 to 24 was significantly higher at about 142 per 10,000 full-time equivalent for workers. It was also noted that the rate of work-related injuries treated in emergency department for workers for people aged 15 to 24 was 1.5 times greater than the rate for workers of 25 years of age and older. Meaning 352 workers under the age of 25 died from work-related injuries in the year 2020 alone. So understanding that this generation is coming into the workforce already at a disadvantage, and then the workforce they are coming into may not be well suited for the skills they bring to bear. We have to consider this when we are relating to them. Now, what makes this work landscape different for both the older generation of workforce and the newer generation of workforce? The first is that technology, as we said earlier, is the way forward and is the new normal for us. AI, automation, Internet of Things with equipment and machinery, being able to communicate with one another without human input, 3D printing, remote monitor, avionics safety and its application, and digitization is the way we are now. We can no longer be using paper, we can no longer be running around with paper. We need to start thinking about digitization, reducing our impact on the environment and leveraging technology in the new world of work. There is also going to be a change in demographic, which we've been talking about, with the increase in the number of millennials and Gen Z workers in the workplace, and the retirement of the boomers and the Gen X workers. The boomers, also known as the baby boomers and Gen X workers, have been the one dominating the workforce till now, and they are the ones that are born before 1982, mostly. And if you have this generation of workers moving out of the workforce or becoming fewer in the workforce, they are the ones that establish the current workforce, the normal that we had before. And we have these new generations coming in. There has to be that handshake between them. Otherwise, you have a friction and you have an inefficient occupational health and safety management system. There is also an increase in gender diversity. And this increase in gender diversity should have us thinking more about the risks that can be associated with having more women in workplaces that were fully dominated by men. An example is when there was an economics session that was held by I've forgotten his name at the moment, but he's a professional in economics, and he was talking about body armor for the military. Most of the body armor that was used, that has been used, as I passed down from the last wars that have gone on, whereby you had the military dominated by men, and they were designed for men. Now you have women coming into the military these days, also participating worldwide, maybe not so much in Nigeria yet. And then the body armor is not suited for their body shape and their size. And then you then have them being more at risk of injury and not being able to wear the equipment that are designed for them, either because they are too big, and then this puts their life at risk when they're putting their own life at risk for their mission. So all these are changing factors that make the landscape of work quite different. There's also an increasing focus on sustainable development, the UN SDGs, the ESG principles and GRI guidelines. Now, ESG simply means environment, social governance, is a system of assessing companies or making it what we call sustainable investments, whereby companies check if investors check if certain guidelines or if certain standards are met before they put their money into such a company. The UN SDGs, of course, we all know, are the Sustainable Development Goals that are set against 2030, and they highlight is a series of points, a series of targets and goals that the world should try to meet in order to reduce inequality and increase the general sustainability and well-being of every person in the world. The goals are going from SDG 1 to SDG 17, starting from no poverty, which is SDG 1, all the way down to collaboration for all parties involved. And the change in the work organization is the final thing that we should be looking at. And no number of working hours, company structure, business strategy, and workforce autonomy and welfare is of course going to change. We've talked about the contingent workforce. The number of work hours now is very flexible, and with push for the hybrid environment, the boundary between the working environment and the living environment is bound to get blurred over time. I mean, you're working from home. Before, once you leave your office, you can leave your work at the office. Now, if you have to work from home, your home is where you work. So all these issues, along with the mental stability of our workers, must also be considered. We must also be considering the structure of our companies and the business strategy that we are trying to put in that will leverage these changes, this advancement in technology, this new generation coming into the workforce, to ensure that our companies move and glide on with the trends. So how do we then bridge the gap in terms of the occupational health and safety? In terms of occupational health and safety, how do we bridge this gap between the old generation and the new generation that is coming into the workforce? The first is we should focus more on applying system-oriented thinking. We should put an emphasis on prevention through design, as opposed to chasing after people and working reactively. We need to adopt and implement systems that are rigorous and strong enough to adopt new and changing new mindsets, and engage and consult all the workforce to find out how a better system can be built. We must start thinking of applying the different ISO management systems, the ISO 45000 and the occupational health and safety management system, and leveraging it to build our own occupational health and safety culture. We must adapt communication strategies to engage feedback and constant engagement. We said earlier that this new generation are used to instant feedback. When they go online and they click to open a web page, gone are the days whereby you start your computer and you have to wait for 20 minutes for it to boot. These days, there are systems that can boot up in less than 10 seconds. Likewise, back in the days of cyber cafes, when you want to browse, you open a web page, it takes 10 minutes to open. These days, you open a web page, it opens instantly. Phones are faster, everything is fast. You get instant feedback. They use social media a lot. Once they post a picture, they can tell whether the picture is nice or not by the engagement they get. And this series of feedback has built a generation of workers who are going to be coming into the workplace that require that same kind of constant feedback. And they require that their ideas be engaged and taken into consideration because they've been sharing these ideas right from the times when they were young and on social media in secondary schools. They've been sharing these ideas freely online. So they are used to being consulted and listened to. And the moment you do not carry them along, they feel left out. And once you have a body of workers feeling left out in your system or in your company or in the culture you're trying to build, you're definitely going to have an issue reaching out to them. So we must adapt our communication strategies to this need for constant engagement and feedback. We must take note of the strengths and weaknesses of the individual cohorts. Now, we are used to working with the older generation of workers, and over time, a number of systems must have been built to adopt them. Now, we must adopt to take in a new generation of workers without compromising the needs of the older generation. So, I'll give an example. We'll see the older generation of workers are more patient. They take their time, and they are more grounded and process-oriented. They are already used to the old system whereby you work in a company for a very long time. I'm sorry, it seemed like I was locked out. I apologize for that. Please, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you.
All right. I'm trying to share my slides. All right. Please, can someone tell me when I was cut off?
While you are speaking on the strengths and weaknesses.
Okay, the strengths and weaknesses of the individual cohorts in setting the objectives. Okay. So we have the different cohorts, the book with, as I group them together, we have the boomers and the Gen X, and then the millennials and the Gen Z, or just taking the Gen Z downwards towards Gen Alpha, the digital natives. Now, the previous generation are system oriented. They've been built in these systems and they've been working there for a very long period of time. And then you have a new generation coming in with an understanding of technology by intuition, right? And is here to make a difference. Now, we must be able to assess the strengths and weaknesses of these individual generations and then leverage them when setting our objectives, such that we make the best use of the abilities of everybody in the workforce. We must understand the needs and expectations of the current cohorts and the Gen Z workforce, as I said earlier, taking, for example, in terms of trainings. With a workforce, if you have a set of people that have very short attention span, having trainings that take long hours of talking and showing videos, just talking and showing videos the way is normal, or just speaking, basically talk shows, would not be effective. We must start thinking of incorporating games and activities into our presentations, into our trainings, so that when these people are listening, when you are doing trainings for them, you can just make them, you can break them into small sessions whereby you lecture for 10 minutes and then you have just a quick pop quiz or what has just been lectured. That will just keep the flow of the engagement constant. And they can get instant feedback from that moment, that whether they know what has been explained or what they've not been explained. And same thing for the facilitator. You can get instant feedback. So that's constant communication can be there. There are many apps now that you can leverage for that. One of them is Kahoot, that you can use to engage even during a presentation, to ask questions. People go there, they use the app, they use it to answer. So there are many tools that are coming up now. And also you can make use of a number of visual aids, a number of engaging videos in the middle. So the idea is to deviate from the old system of training to a new system of training that is going to engage these people and not just bore them. As I said, you must integrate games, challenging workshops, and other hands-on techniques, learning by doing, as opposed to learning by telling. So you must also practice what you preach with these people, because they are not going to be shy to question you. It's not enough just to say, do it this way. The days whereby you tell them, do it because you tell workers, do it like this because that is what is good, is not going to work. You have to explain to them why it has to be done that way and the benefits, right? Because you may end up having you saying one thing, and don't be shocked. In the same presentation and same training you are doing, someone has Googled what you said and is ready to ask you questions. So we must also not be shocked by that desire to instantly question information. It is the way that they learn, and it is also to our advantage, because it means that once they buy into whatever you are trying to preach, whatever you're trying to develop, they buy into it seriously and wholeheartedly. They don't get doubts about it after. So it's an advantage and an opportunity that can be leveraged. So how then do we perform this integration we talked about? Well, the first thing is to analyze the future workforce skills. What are the skills that we'll be needing in the future with the advancing technologies? What are the skills that are required? Literacy skills, analytical skills. Data analytics is very big in the modern day. Digitization, elementary programming. What are the skills that will be required for the future? What are the skills that we have currently in the workforce that we can leverage? And then we analyze the workforce skill gap. That is the difference within the skills that we have in our organization now and the skills that we require in the future. And then we create an action plan to close that gap. We must remember that in spite of whatever we do and whatever plan we have or whatever skills gap we've done, culture will always eat strategy for breakfast. If you don't have your culture straight, no matter what you want to do in terms of change, in terms of performance, innovation, execution, growth, your culture is what is going to drive it. So we must strive to build proactive safety culture. We say culture is strategy for breakfast, but then in this case, culture will eat your strategy for breakfast, lunch, and dinner if you let it. So very importantly, culture is going to be a key factor. We must try to build these positive OHS cultures, an OHS culture that encourages workers to ask questions and encourages workers to participate actively in the development of that culture and its HSE system. We must also remember that collaboration is key. Many of we OHS professionals, we do a lot. Sometimes you hear OHS, at other times you hear HSE, somebody will put in front of it QHSE, they will add another one, they'll say security, QHSSE, and then one person is managing everything. The truth is that we wear a lot of caps. We wear the cap of the advisor, we wear the cap of the counselor, we also wear the disciplinary hat, we wear the cap of the management voice, but we can't do it alone. We must learn to collaborate with every party. Everybody has a role to play in the entry of the new workforce into this digital age we are talking about. We must carry along the different departments. The HR has a role, the supervisors have a role, the technical leads have a role, the facility engineers have a role. So we must carry everybody along and collaborate with them. We must work together to build this culture, this system that is going to be effective in ensuring that our companies survive this changing work environment. In conclusion, the post-COVID-19 world is a world of new challenges, to be sincere. It has opened our eyes to a number of changes, and it has shown us that it's not business as usual. And anybody that does not adapt, anybody that does not change with the times, anybody that is not willing to prioritize the well-being of its workforce is not likely to survive very long. It has been shown that companies that prioritize the well-being of their workers and the ones that can easily adapt to this changing environment are the ones that will survive this changing of work. To round up, I will use a famous saying from another great person, that person being Peter Drucker, one of the founders of the modern day industrialized world. And he said, the best way to predict the future of work is to create it. So I will ask a question that was asked by a smart colleague of mine by the name of Pasi, and that is, in our workplaces, are we digital laggards? Are we digital leaders? Are we starting to try to predict what the future of work is going to bring? What the new generation is going to be like when they are working with us? Are we trying to create that future? Are we waiting for the future to be created and then running after them? I can assure you that if you are involved in creating the future, you'll be better adapted to it than someone running after it and chasing after the advancements that have been made. So I thank you all for listening. I hope this has been very informative. It has been a pleasure in this knowledge sharing session. Originally, this presentation was made at the just concluded the IOSH West Africa conference, but it is more than a pleasure to be presenting it here. Thank you all very much for listening, and I'll be handing over to my very own moderator if there are any questions.
Thank you very much.
Okay, the session, it was actually a mind-blowing one, and I now know the gaps that that I definitely have to cover up in my place. Hello, please, let's confirm if you can hear me, please.
Yeah, we can hear you now. We're not hearing you.
Okay.
Yes, we can hear you. I can hear you from here.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry I was logged out earlier. So once again, thank you to Adegboyega for that mind-blowing session. It is actually a great one, and it's a very nice one hearing from a young colleague in the industry. Thank you once again, and we sincerely appreciate your presentation. So the floor is now open for questions, contributions. Questions and contribution, please. We have 10 minutes. Thank you. So you can either raise up your hand probably, or you put it in the chat room where it can be picked upon. Thank you. The floor is now open. The floor is open for questions and contributions, please.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for this wonderful presentation. I have a question here. The question is that I'm so sorry I was in a class, so I joined late. I don't know if we can get the slide shared across to us. That would be very beneficial and helpful. Thank you very much.
It will.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah.
Yes, your question, please. You say you have a question. Is that the question, right?
Yes, that is just it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. So, okay, I will now call on Roland Adams. Roland, can you take over, please? Roland.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon from my end. I am sorry, I'm very, very not proper to come on video at the moment, but I will just go ahead and ask my question, please.
Okay, no problem with that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. You spoke very, very well. So my question is, in regarding to creating an influential safety culture, how do we deal with non-receptive individuals? Okay, because this is a vast information for everybody. However, we have some people who are not receptive. So how do we deal with this one?
Okay. All right. Will we take all the questions or can I answer them as they come?
You can answer this. You can answer this while we wait for others.
All right. So, of course, there will always be those who, when you bring forth an idea or change, or when you're trying to start and we just try to build an influential safety culture, who would resist, who would tell you, oh, I've been doing this thing for 20 years, I've been doing this thing for 30 years. Where are you coming from? You people are just even doing safety self. What was safety when I was doing this thing all my life? And you would have them, and they would always pose a challenge. So the truth of the matter is, nobody wants something that is bad for them. Usually, these people do so out of ignorance. They do not know the benefits of what they are rejecting. Or when they see the benefit, they believe that the cost is going to be more. So it's more about engaging them. And it's not going to be a one-day thing. It's going to be a continuous process. It's going to be a very grueling process to buy them over. So it's more about engaging them and helping them to see the value that being safe, that safety brings to the table, that buying into the health and safety culture, the new health and safety culture brings to the table. So you would have to take your time to engage them one-on-one. And also, it should be less, it shouldn't always be formal. Like you are trying for a top-down approach. You may also need to go down to the levels of the workers. I'll give an example. If you have a construction site and you have different kind of workers coming there, some of them may not even be able to speak English properly. And then you want to tell them about health and safety. And then you're speaking to them in plain English, talking to them about what management wants and what management does not want. At the end of the day, half of the things you've said over their head, because what they are thinking about is today's bread and nothing more. So you must be able to take it to the level of whoever you're speaking to is, and trying to meet them on a personal level. It has to be that human face in whatever engagement you are having, and also that patience. It's not going to be a matter of just driving people away. If you are going to build a culture, you have to go beyond just punishing. You have to also reward good behavior. I know that we have a wealth of experienced professionals in the house, leaders as well in occupational health and safety. So I'm sure there will be more they can add to what I've said. But then what I'll say is meet them where they are, and then have a human face in trying to bring them along.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. So if I understand you correctly, you're talking from the perspective of the HSC personnel to the workforce.
To the workforce. So what if
so what if this poor culture is coming from the management? If the non-receptiveness is coming from the management, how do we tackle this one? Because I have been in a situation where I am the safety advisor on site. However, I have managers that I report to as stakeholders. All right. So these people, they tend to prove to you that they know, meanwhile they don't know. They are not well studied. And then they hired you for that purpose of advisory. Then when you try to give them this advice, they become non-receptive. So how do we deal with these people? Now, we're not talking about the people who are doing the activity directly. We're talking about the top management. How do we deal with that non-responsiveness in this regard?
In this regard, I will say something. If the top management is not buying into building an occupational health and safety culture, then that culture is behavior from the beginning.
Mm.
Even ISO 45001, after it talks about the scope of the organization, the concept of the organization in clause 4, the next place it goes to in clause 5 is leadership.
Mm.
So if there is no leadership buy-in from the beginning, for a safety manager or a safety representative to build a good occupational health and safety culture on his own without management commitment is almost impossible. I don't know if it has been possible somewhere else, but in my experience, in my very limited experience, it is almost impossible. However, there are still things that can be done to encourage management to buy into it. The thing is, to my knowledge, most of management issues with health and safety is ignorance, which is they believe it is too much money for too little benefit. And many of us make the mistake of doubting just the other side. We must be able to quantify the benefit of occupational health and safety in terms of the bottom line as well. Letting them understand that it actually is financially smart to have a good health and safety culture and a good safety culture in place. And there are some measures that can be taken, but I will stop here because I know that there are a number of knowledgeable people here who have had similar experiences and can talk about how to buy over top management when it comes to health and safety. So
thank you so much. Thank you. You have done well. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Can I quickly add?
Okay.
Chair. Yes, thank you very much, Chair. My name is Akeem. So I'll just enable my video. I don't know if you can see me, but
yes,
just to add a little flavor to that question and the response from the speaker. Very good question and very good response. So I'll just speak a little from my experience to this. So the answer you gave was spot on. As safety professionals, we should just not be seen as people that talk about the law all the time or talk about regulations all the time, you know, trying to be like the police people. We should also talk like business people. That's when leaders will listen to you more. When you try to let them know the benefit, the cost benefits, or what they'll gain from, you know, whatever you're trying to speak to them. A lot of my generation or generation before myself, think about, you know, what is coming to the business, you know, first. And I always tell people that I agree that safety is first, but we're not always the first. Businesses are there to make profit. So think about that, you know, think about like you are a business owner, and your advice to them is to help them make more money, you know, despite the fact that you're trying to tell them to do it safe, you have to try and tell them that this is why we should do it safe. The other thing is try as much as possible not to make people look stupid, even as a safety guy. I know we know a lot, we read a lot, we see a lot from our colleagues in other countries, you know, in other organizations, in big multinationals. We see their standards, and you know, because of this knowledge that we're empowered with, we go to challenge our people locally. I call it challenge because that's the way most of us present it to them. And, you know, everybody wants to be on the defense. And as soon as you come with that kind of mindset to a leader like that, or some business owners like that, they reject you immediately. So you need to find a way to calm down. I'm not saying drop your ego or whatever, but you need to find a way to balance it while you're approaching them and you're talking to them about changes you want to introduce to the workplace, or your innovations or your ideas. One of the other ways I would also give you that's very practical that I have used in the past very well while I was upcoming, like most of us, was I spent some money, you know, I spent some time to take some of my top leaders out. So I have ideas that I want to share with them, but sometimes the workplace is not the best place to talk to them about this. You know, so maybe I look for them during lunch time. I look for them, or I tell them, can we hang out? You know, whether I was at an oil and gas company, Port Harcourt, sometimes over the weekend, you know, or in the evenings, you know, we hang out in some places. We talk about other things, and then I begin to introduce some of my safety topics to them. I tell you, when they're at that calm, you know, moment, they would listen to you. they will talk to you. They'll tell you the reason why they rejected. They'll tell you so you win your battles in those ways, and then you bring it to the workplace and implement it. I tell you, applying some of these, they're crazy strategies, but they work. They do some magic. They worked for me, per se. So these are some of the ideas, I'm just bringing to the table. I know we have a whole lot of other ones, but some of the easy ways to win, the management, let them know it's business positive. Let them also, know that you're not trying to run them down. You're not trying to impose things on them. You're trying to educate them, train them, create their awareness. And you're also trying to be on their level, you understand how it is with them. Those are my points. Thanks, Chair, and thanks to the presenter.
Thank you, Mr. Hakim.
Okay. Thank you, Hakim, for that wonderful insight. So, at that point, Molade, PR to different people means different meanings. So I don't know what you are insinuating here, but no problem. Thanks for that input, my chair of chairs. So we'll be taking one last question because of our time. I can see a question that was dropped in the chat room. I'm trying to look at it. Is okay. Yeah, okay. Goega, we asked this important question. It reads, how do you balance tribal and religious cultural belief with safety culture, especially in areas where they contradict each other? How do you balance tribal and religious cultural beliefs with safety culture, especially in areas where they contradict each other? Can you just respond to this in 60 seconds? Thank you.
In 16 seconds, okay. What I would say is you have to understand whoever you're working with, their culture and their beliefs before you can even try to start balancing it. And if you do not understand it, there's no way that you can understand the people. So the first step is to understand. I'll give you an example. I'm a Muslim. And if you are a safety professional and you are with a number of Catholic people, that when they need to pray, they need to take off their hat, and then you leave yours on, it may seem disrespectful. It may seem like a very small thing. So you must understand that culture first of all that you are talking about. And when you contradict health and safety, you don't need to tell them that their culture is wrong. You don't need to prove that you know more than them. Right, as my brother said, it's not about an argument. It's letting them see reason. You do not tell them that what they believe or what their culture says is wrong. You'd say yes, but then you put both at the back. Yes, but this and this is what you need to stay safe. Yes, but you can use that approach as one of it. So try as much as possible not to breed conflict. Once you breed conflict and you breed argument with what someone holds strongly as faith, there is no time at all that they will listen to you. So you must listen to them first and understand before you can make an effort for them to understand what you're saying. I think I spent more than 16 seconds, but that's the message.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that great response. I did Buega. Thank you once again. And please, sincere apologies because we can still see some other questions in the chat room, but we cannot take them now because of time. So I will now call on the Treasurer Buki.
If you permit me, sir, those questions can be sent privately and I can send a response to them that can be published.
Okay. Thank you. We will definitely do that. Gigebe, please, can you take note of those questions so we could actually send them to the speaker after the meeting? Thank you. So I will now call on Buki to come over and do the certificate presentation. Please, kindly, the screen. You need to stop sharing the screen now. Thank you. Buki, please kindly come over for the presentation of certificate and to appreciate our speaker. Thank you. Oh, okay. I think
Can you
booking
hear
my.
me?
Okay. Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. Yeah. So, to our presenter, Adegboyega, thank you so much for that very insightful and thought-provoking presentation. On behalf of IOSH West Africa Division, we make this presentation of this certificate to you. And just to let you know, like Oliver Twist will still come back again to ask for another presentation. So I hope you'll be able to grant us audience. And thank you very much once again.